I just want to thank for the opportunity to share this case study, because I think it really does inform the agenda for this conference. And it is a case study about how the system is working today and why we really need a rare disease strategy in Canada. And so that the experiences that Dr. Héon has had in being a trailblazer in this space, and our two patients that have lived experience around where we are in the system today, Jack and Sitka. So let's just talk a little bit about a moment. This is an amazing moment in time for the vision loss community. And we are very pleased, that we are in this moment when innovative treatments that can transform lives are available. They're, with Luxturna, as Darhan said, was approved over a year ago as a treatment in this country. But the story, I think, the journey that we've been on says an awful lot about why we need a rare disease strategy. So it was literally 12 years ago, Dr. Héon used the Fighting Blindness Canada's patient registry. We identified 5 patients. They had to go to Philadelphia to participate in a phase 1 RPE65, which is the targeted gene therapy. 5 of those Canadians, they're in their one eye, that has stabilized their sight. In their other eye, it is following the natural progression of the disease. And the system did, the Patent Medicines Price Review Board, Health Canada, CADTH, they all informed the Canadian system in 2015, 2016, that Luxturna was coming. This gene therapy was coming. And when the US government's FDA approved it in December 2017, there was many in Canada that did a high five. Because we wanted this treatment here in this country. But it's been 4 years, and there is an economic barrier to access to this treatment right now that has not been resolved. We do not have access. It's been approved, but we don't have access, and it is quite troubling. So we participated as a patient organization. We did a social economic impact study called IRD Counts. We submitted it through the process. We defined the social economic impact of $1.6 billion for an inherited retinal disease community of 21,000 Canadians. We contributed to the dialogue when given an opportunity, the one and only opportunity we had formally with the CADTH process. Almost 600 members of our community participated in a survey. We did a case study because the Quebec government did allow for one patient to go in compassionate access to the United States to get this treatment, Sam's story. And we submitted our input into the system. Kudos to Health Canada and CADTH. They developed a gene therapy special track. It took 10 months for the review of the application. 1 month later, CADTH and then INES, shortly thereafter, recommended it for public funding in 2020. And then we hit the provincial organization's government organization called Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance. And it was almost a year, November 25th. So just a few days ago, the provincial governments decided that, yes, they would want to pursue having access to this treatment and have issued a letter of engagement to start the negotiation. That year of them thinking about whether or not to access this treatment has been well beyond their performance standard. And now they're telling us the performance standard is up to 4 months for this negotiation. Well, we know that Zolgensma had quite a longer time, and so our community is still sitting there, and Jack and Sitka will talk about that in a moment. But where are we internationally? 25 countries have approved Luxturna as a treatment. 19 of them have figured out a reimbursement pathway for this treatment. The UK, Germany, France. Canadians would really think that's the list we should be a part of. Australia, even Croatia has figured out how to reimburse this treatment. And Croatia was a year ago. The 6 countries that are still trying to figure out what they're going to do, whether or not they're going to publicly fund this treatment or another reimbursement strategy. Brazil, Argentina, Poland, Greece, Portugal, and Canada. I don't think Canadians really think that we would be a part of that list, that we would be part of a list like Germany or France. So it is a bit about this part of this work. And while this is going on, since Health Canada has approved this treatment, over 4 million photoreceptors have died. And they're, because of our patient registry and because of the great network that we built with Dr. Héon's leadership in our patient registry, we have 41 Canadians on a waiting list that was identified very shortly after Health Canada approved the treatment because of that patient registry and because of the work that have been done over these years. Some of those people on this waiting list, by the time it does not get out of or that we go through this bureaucratic process, some may call it dithering, around approving this treatment for public funding, they will not have enough photoreceptors to start. So I invite Dr. Héon and Jack. I know Jack and Sitka would like to share as well their personal journey as a part of this case study. So Dr. Héon.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Durain, for supporting us on this journey. You've been really amazing. I've been following these patients for 25 years, and they relentlessly go blind. It's really sad. And the kids now know that there's a treatment available. It's just not accessible. We went through, when I hear the story of Glybera, we went through a similar story where we helped the initial company, Spark, provide natural history data and all that. And there was just no interest to provide submission to Health Canada, despite so many requests. And so it's been very frustrating because it's the only good thing maybe of our healthcare system right now, is that we're able to follow up our patients. So we did have good internal natural history, and our patients were identified because we molecularly characterize all our patients. The problem that this causes right now that I hadn't mentioned to Doug is that we're involved in several other clinical trials right now, but the companies are hesitant because they see the difficulty we have with Luxturna. So they say, is it worth our while to include you? Or are we going to hit a wall like Luxturna? And I'm like, oh, no, it's a special situation. Of course not. Canadian government is very receptive. But it's very frustrating because one injection in a child would be a life changer like SMA, and the child could have like a pretty normal life. But every year of delay decreases the ability to maximize the benefit of such a product. But our colleagues in Europe and in the US say, as long as you see light, you can benefit from the treatment. The size of the effect is just less. So we've been working with Jack, trying to get private insurance funding. And interestingly, because this condition is misnamed, Leber's congenital amaurosis, it's the name of a guy who put it on it, but it's not a congenital disease. And so his insurance company said, well, you could only be treated until the age of 2, but you're not eligible at the age of 2. And so we're trying to educate the administrative community about the real nature of this condition. So I'm happy to answer any question, Doug.
Sitka, if you could unmute and share your journey with your daughter, Nora.
Yeah. I'm Sitka. My daughter, Nora Francis, is 5 years old, and she has Leber's congenital amaurosis and would benefit from Luxturna. Nora was born in December of 2015. Everything was normal, full term. At 5 weeks, she developed nystagmus, which, well, we didn't know what nystagmus was at the time, but her eyes started rapidly moving up and down. So we took her to the IWK emergency, which is the children's hospital here in Halifax. And we went into the emergency room, and we had emergency doctors come in and look at her, and nurses come in and look at her, and nobody knew what it was. And every time somebody else would come into the room, my husband and I, it was a bad feeling because nobody knew what was going on. So they actually called up to neurology and sent her up there, and they did an EEG to check her brain, and that was good. And then the neurologist there did a few little tests on her and said, what I see is a baby who is severely visually impaired, and to prepare for lifelong blindness. So that was a bit of a shock. And from there, he referred us to ophthalmology. And so when we got home from that kind of emergency visit, it was, of course, what any parent does is they start researching. So I researched and to learn how to look after a baby with a visual impairment. And then when I was doing research, I came across Leber's congenital amaurosis, and it seemed to line up with what was going on with her. However, which we now know kind of markers LCA type 2 is that her vision did improve. So by the time she was about 6 months old, in good lighting, she was seeing very well. And so the diagnosis for her was actually leaning towards congenital stationary night blindness. And so we liked the sound of that because we knew that that was not degenerative. And so, stationary, woohoo. Anyways, it took us, she had lots of tests done, and at 2.5, she had an ERG done to check her retinal function. And both her specialist was expecting that it would confirm the night blindness diagnosis, but however, it confirmed that she had Leber's congenital amaurosis. She was actually quite surprised how well Nora was doing with her vision compared to the results of that ERG. So from there, actually, it was quite quick. They did warn us that genetic testing might take a while, but it was only a couple months, and then it did confirm that it was type 2. So this would have been in the fall of 2018. She was confirmed, and of course we were happy that the type she had actually had an approved treatment in the States at that time. And so then, of course, we started trying to advocate to, how do we get our child to have this, treatment? And of course, you do everything you say is, well, through a specialist. Can she go to the States and get this done? What can she do? And so we, all this for a couple of years, of course. And then, we tried to raise awareness about it. We did an article in the Halifax newspaper about her and about how the treatment wasn't available in Canada yet. And then in 2020, obviously it was approved here in Canada. And then of course we were very excited, but we ourselves didn't really know how long a process would take from that. So then then it was a new journey of trying to write emails, and then Doug Earle contacted me, which ended up feeling really good that we had other people behind us that have been working tirelessly to try to get this treatment into Canada, because I think with a parent of somebody who has a rare disease, you can feel very alone because you don't know anybody else who's experiencing this. And so when he reached out, we did a little news blurb there in CTV, and so that was great. And is there anything else?
Well, I think it's, as a part of a case study, here is a mom worried about her child, her baby, toddler, and Sitka, you've been just amazing sharing your story with Canada. That CTV news story went across the country. You've had to navigate the system trying to get the best care for your daughter. And so thank you. But it does say something about our system that we've had to do it. I see Jack's chair. Jack, are you there?
I am, Doug.
Yeah, please add into our discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with all of you. I am a person living with type 2 Leber's congenital amaurosis, and like Nora, could benefit from Luxturna. And it's so fascinating to me because Nora's story is so similar to mine, except about 20 years apart. The main difference with me is I didn't get genetic diagnosis until I was 16 years old. And, you know, in my situation, I've lost a lot of vision over the last, 10 years. My vision was quite stable until about the age of 15, and it's, decreased a lot. I haven't been able to read, a large print book for a long time. I barely use my vision other than for mobility and good lighting now. And Luxturna can still benefit me because it can help keep the vision that I do have, which I, as impaired as it is, it's still something that, makes a difference in my life. And, throughout this process of waiting and trying to find every opportunity possible to get this treatment, it's been so heartbreaking, I guess, to know that there's a treatment out there and know that I'm a person who's working full time, I'm contributing to society, I'm paying taxes, and that this isn't something that the government's been as fast on acting on as I would have liked. And I'm really hopeful for children like Nora because I know how well I could see when I was 5 years old, and being able to restore that level of vision for someone is just will make such a huge difference. So I'm very hopeful that we'll see some progress soon, and hopefully that I'll be able to benefit from the treatment as well.
Jack, I know as someone living with this condition, knowing that there's a treatment there, can you talk a little bit about the opportunity that you have as with that experience to contribute to the decision-making process?
Sorry, Doug, you cut out for a second, so I'm going to try and repeat what you said and just tell me if I am misquoting you. But you're asking like my involvement in the decision-making process to share on that, or
yeah, but what inputs, how have you felt about the opportunities that you've had to input into the system and share a lived experience voice about the urgency of this treatment?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Doug. As someone living with this condition, I felt like I've been sidelined and that there's nothing that I can do to help make this process happen. Doug shared that FBC has done phenomenal work on, building the case around this and making it so that the government's aware of how much this treatment can impact people's lives. And they've done a great job, but myself as a patient, because of our system in Canada, I'm not able to share my experience. I'm not able to share, how this treatment can change my life as an individual. I'm, not able to add my voice, and I've just got to sit there and wait and notice that my vision's getting worse. And it's terrible to, feel like you're helpless and that there's nothing you can do. I volunteer with some organizations that help do similar work to FBC in the United States, for example. And in the United States, patients and family members were able to testify as part of the approval process, which I believe in part really helped that process move along quickly because the stories of the patients and the families really made what this science had been coming toward for so long. It made it real. And we haven't had that in Canada. And I think that's why we're on that list of 6 countries, in part because of, not having the patients involved.
Dr. Héon?
Yes, thank you, Doug. Jack has been an amazing advocate, and we wish that we could clone Jack in many versions, because the problem with visual impairment is that it's invisible and it's silent. Like people, you don't see someone who's visually impaired. Like visual impaired people, they figure it out, they're strong, but they suffer internally greatly. And the the fact that it's been a year that this has been approved and that nothing's happening, I personally find is unethical. And that's what we told CADTH, that nothing's been happening when you have a progressive degenerative disease where the impact on society, keeping someone active in the workforce, mentally well, because the effect on depression is extremely high, is just absolutely not right. And we've been really lucky to have the support of Fighting Blindness Canada, who through the years, we've built a national registry, and we're lined up. Everyone's trained, the pharmacy's trained, surgeons are trained, patients are identified. We're just sitting there waiting.
Sitka, did you want to contribute to the discussion?
No, Fighting Blindness. I'm so glad that there is a registry for Nora to be on, and we put her on it right away. That was the first thing our specialist gave us when she gave us the diagnosis just of Leber's congenital amaurosis. We put all the information in right away, and it felt like at least we were doing something. So it would be great if registry, like they were speaking before, if a registry could be made for a lot of, or a national registry for all these different genetic diseases, because I think that's definitely helpful.
And Dr. Héon, could you maybe share a little bit around your colleagues and what they've been doing to try to get this treatment approved?
Well, here, my medical colleagues.
Yes.
Well, not much.
Well, you've been testifying, you've been sending letters, you've been working with the hospital administration. You know.
Well, I have Doug behind me, and so no, actually that's not true. Like through Novartis has been kind in helping us form a national advisory board from the key specialists in the country. For now, there's 3 treatment centers identified. We've written so many letters. I've been lucky. After a year, the hospital has been receptive in trying to support us, but of course we can't be at the forefront of the request. I have had the privilege of having 5 patients treated in the early trial about 15 years ago, and in those days, you were treating the worst cases because people weren't taking any risk. It was still a phase 1-2. And the kids still use their vision. And even though their effect may not have been great for them, when you see them, it's a major effect. And we've been managing to get the word out more through the support of Doug, and through, I think what was interesting is that what we've learned also through Novartis is that people just don't know how to manage this situation. The hospital doesn't know and the government doesn't know. So we've built a team, and I have to thank Brent for being part of that team that includes pharmacy business management, the OR business management, the VP of operation, myself, anyone we can think of who could have insight in decision making and how can you reach out. But it's a novel process, and all these people didn't know each other. So it just came from me begging to one and then begging to another, and then realize that, oh, all the key stakeholders in this decision making process don't know each other. So it's been very useful, and we meet regularly for updates. Doug managed to have a meeting with the high up at CADTH, which coincidentally a few days after negotiations were starting. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, we've tried everything.
Yeah,
and I have to be careful.
that was the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance that we met their governing council. Sorry. Yep, no problem. The system is Byzantine at the best of times, but it's an easy mistake not to, to confuse it all. Which again is another point why we need a rare disease strategy. So, Darhan, our time is up, and Bill, if you want to dialogue more or have any questions, we're happy to answer.
This is great, Doug. You led a lot of the Q&A among the panelists, and thank you for also contributing to the chat. I just want to highlight it for those who are not necessarily following it as closely, that you've put the website approvedluxturna.ca there, and just I had a quick look at it, and it's very clear, and it brings back from my reflection to our earlier conversation on the roadmap. And when you talk about provincial funding, the note is we're not there yet, but I think if people visit that website, which is super clear and explains what's happening on the specific issue, there's going to be a lot of people on the line among delegates, and I'm thinking about Kim and others at cystic fibrosis, and so many other delegates who have been at different stages where you are now. So I'm just hopeful, Earle and Sitka and Jack and others, that we're these opportunities to share experiences and case studies like this are going to help others who are facing similar challenges, but hopefully to give you hope that that this can work, that there are ways to deblock the system at the right time, so that we that we don't have more stories like Jack's where it's a rapid progression. And that's why I'm really thankful for Durhan to have built this case study here into the agenda. We are at time though. So are there any final thoughts that you have, Doug, to wrap up your reflections on your panel?
No, well, thank you, Bill, for mentioning approvedluxturna.ca. And, I think we've shared a little bit around both our medical leaders and two stories of lived experience around what you have to do to get access to a transformational treatment in the current system and why the system has to change. But we set up this website. We mobilized 4,000 emails to get to this point where provinces are now negotiating. And now that we've refreshed the website in the last 3 days, so please send an email, go on the website, approvedluxturna.ca, fill it out, send an email, because unfortunately, we're trailblazing for gene therapies. The system is not set up to deal with us. And so that all the treatments that are coming, we're tracking 70 new treatments in the inherited space alone around gene therapies that are coming. And so we really need to set the precedent that this is funded, so all those that follow will not have to go through what we're going through, and Sitka and Jack don't have to remove that, be on a soapbox just to get a transformational treatment to save their sight and not go blind.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doug.